Marco Polo was born in 1254 in Venice, a city floating between water and wealth. Venice was not just a home, it was a gateway. Ships arrived daily carrying whispers from distant lands, spices from Arabia, silk from the east, gold from places no map could clearly define. Marco's childhood was shaped by absence. His father, Niccolo Polo, and uncle Maffeo were merchants who had vanished eastward for years at a time. While other boys learned trades, Marco learned patience and curiosity. When his father finally returned, he brought more than riches. He brought stories of an empire so vast it rewrote the idea of power. An empire ruled by Kublai Khan, whose word could move armies and reshape civilizations. But this was no ordinary tale. The Khan had asked for scholars, engineers, and messengers from Europe, and the Polos were invited back. In 1271, at just 17 years old, Marco Polo left everything he knew behind. No certainty, no return date, only a road stretching into legend. The journey east was merciless. For nearly 4 years, Marco and his family crossed regions that devoured the unprepared. Burning deserts where water was worth more than gold. Mountain passes so high that breath itself became a luxury. They traveled through Persia, Central Asia, and the edges of civilizations barely known to Europeans. Bandits, illness, starvation, all were constant companions. Yet Marco endured. When they finally reached the heart of the Mongol Empire, Marco did not arrive as a conqueror, but as an observer, and that became his greatest strength. At the court of Kublai Khan, Marco proved invaluable. He learned languages quickly, adapted to customs, and absorbed knowledge with relentless focus. The Khan saw in him something rare, a foreigner who truly listened. Marco was sent across the empire as an envoy, traveling to cities more advanced than anything Europe could imagine. He witnessed massive urban centers, complex taxation systems, organized postal networks, and the widespread use of paper money, concepts almost alien to medieval Europe. In places like Khanbalik, modern Beijing, Marco saw an empire operating like a machine, vast, efficient, and terrifyingly powerful. For nearly 17 years, Marco lived inside the East, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, but as a trusted servant of the most powerful ruler on earth. When Marco Polo finally returned to Venice in 1295, he came back transformed. He dressed differently, spoke differently, thought differently. To many Venetians, he seemed like a stranger, or worse, a fantasist. Soon after his return, fate struck again. During a conflict between Venice and Genoa, Marco was captured and imprisoned in Genoa. But history has a cruel sense of irony. It was in a prison cell that Marco Polo changed the world forever. There, he dictated his memories to a writer, turning decades of travel into a single narrative. The Travels of Marco Polo. Europe was stunned. Some mocked the stories. Cities of millions, rivers of trade, emperors richer than kings. Others were inspired beyond measure. Centuries later, explorers like Christopher Columbus would sail west with Marco Polo's book in hand, convinced the world was larger than anyone dared believe. Marco Polo died in 1324. When asked to admit exaggeration on his deathbed, he refused. "I have not told half of what I saw." And perhaps that is his greatest legacy. Not the roads he crossed, not the empires he witnessed, but the idea he planted, that the world is far bigger and far more connected than we ever imagined. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment below who you want next.